We wanted to begin this final session, Kozan and I, with a practice. And the reason why we feel it's so important for us to keep the practice grounding us is that this training program, this year that we have spent bearing witness to extraordinary teachers, some of them very deeply steeped in meditation practice, and knowing how valuable practice is in terms of being balanced in our lives, but also making it possible for us to see things clearly. And this is really important. So I'm going to invite us to take a good in-breath and exhale. And again, gathering your attention, letting it rest on the in-breath. And exhale, that feeling of really letting go, particularly at the end of the exhale, that gap. Rest in the gap. And inhale naturally arrives. And exhale. Really letting your awareness drop into your body. And the inhale naturally arrives. And bring your attention just for a moment to the sensation of your feet on the floor, being grounded, really rooted. And gently shifting your attention to your back. Again, using this metaphor, we've turned to again and again, the body, mind, not separate. So this capacity to uphold yourself in the midst of any conditions. And some of you are really in very challenging situations. So strong back. Strong back. And breath deep in the body. Give volume to the torso. And our back, as I can remind you, exemplifies that capacity we have for equanimity, to hold all things in equal regard. Strong back, not stiff, alive, pliable, flexible. Strong back. Very important at this time. And gently shifting your attention to the front part of your body. Soft front. That relationship between equanimity and compassion, so important. Soft front. And let the breath be deep in the body. Strong back. Soft front. equanimity, compassion. And for a moment, consider what has transpired this year, but really now for 2 years, this historic time of this pandemic. So many losses. And notice if it's strong front, where we're really defending ourselves against another loss, and soft back, fear. And see if you can, with the breath and the heart, really shift into strong back, soft front. And breath deep in the body. And always in the kind of practice that we cultivate at Upaya, nourishing bodhicitta, this deep aspiration to awaken and to be of benefit to others deeply, fully. Strong back. Soft front. And as we move through this last session of the SEBT program, the Socially Engaged Buddhist Training Program that we've been engaged in over this year, it is to keep in our heart and in our foreground the profound value of an aspiration that is deeply unselfish in order to meet this world as it is. So thank you. Thank you, everybody. It's so wonderful to see you. And I put on the gallery view and many old friends here, and my gratitude. And I know Kozan, we've met a few times in the past few days. We've been just completely moved by your projects, and also just this sense of community that has emerged over this year. And I told my own collegial group, I said in this first year of the pandemic, being sequestered, really having to, live in a very protected way, all of us, many of us in lockdown. I just, I was at the refuge, and at a certain point, I realized, I said, we're stuck. I mean, this is not going away in a matter of months. And it is important for us not to despair and to go into a sort of hibernation state, but to realize that even in lockdown, even with this pandemic raging, we are able, one, to be inspired by teachers who have really done extraordinary work in the world, beginning with our beloved Joan Macy, and one extraordinary teacher after another. And I thought, let's create this socially engaged Buddhist training. And I made a list in a curriculum, and I said to my collegial group that it was just like a fiat. I just kind of saw the sequence. I laid all the dates out without even inviting people and asking if they were available. I sent emails to all the faculty, and in 24 hours, every single person, including Laurie Anderson, said yes. I was just like, wow, that is just so cool. And I had no idea, it's like one of these things. It was a Bernie Glassman special, real not knowing. But one of the things that seemed important to me was, at this time, it is essential that we build community, both locally and also globally. That it is essential that we strengthen our vows and our values at this time. And also that we have a practice that grounds us, a faculty that inspires us, and also that we are engaged as a community and as individuals in work that deeply serves others. And sometimes that work for some of us would be at a very internal level. In other words, the pandemic brought people into the opportunity to really touch into their inner life and to be in a process of spiritual formation. For others, it was projects out in the world that they were able to engage in spite of the pandemic. And as a result of that, we have spawned in a certain way, not only a community, but a series of projects which are not ending with this meeting, right, Kozan? So many of the projects have a here and after. And this also goes for our spiritual formation process. About 2/3 of the way through, I'd fallen in love with so many of you all that I got to meet both in my cohort and then just online. And I realized that I didn't want us to just let the community drift off into, the ether after this year, that it was important that we actually go further down the road as a global community together. And so with Kozan's support, we created this, a donation program just for you all, not for outside people, with 4 major meetings and micro trainings, so that we can begin to really refine the skills that we have been touching over the past year, to bring those skills into greater focus as we meet a world that we have no idea what is ahead. I mean, it is so out there. Now, you might wonder where I am. So usually, I have the Chinese screen behind me, and I'm up in my little living room. But on Monday, I realized that I was so worn out, and I was supposed to go to Costa Rica and teach and leave on Saturday right after winter practice period. But I just, COVID, I just didn't feel that I could do it. But on Monday, I made the reservations and went for Wendy and me, and we flew here. And right now, I am wanting to say to you, exhaling is a really good thing to do. And I will joke, because, at Upaya, wherever I look, I see the words subtly written on the walls, on the walkways, on the students' foreheads. And the word is work. I cannot escape it at Upaya. People come to Upaya to get away from work. I have to get out of Upaya, because it has been one heck of a ride these past 2 years, keeping Upaya afloat in the midst of these crazy conditions, us closing overnight, as so many centers did, and us wanting to serve a bigger community through the network of teachers that we have grown into a family with. So on Monday, I made the decision, and Tuesday flew here to Costa Rica. So you see, there's no snow. and you might hear some little animal sounds in the background. So I wanted to tell you all that in case you were curious. And so what we want to do in this time, and this is a real going forth, it is a time for us to bear witness to each other. It's a time, not a whole council thing. Don't worry, we're not going to put you through that. We're too numeroso. But it's a time for us to affirm our vows and our values. And it is also a time for us to remember the projects that we put in place in the course of this training, and for all of us to bear witness to those projects. And then Kozan and I want to share some words with you about this feeling of going forth. And I want to encourage all of you deeply to join the second year. As I said, it's by donation. The collegial groups, for the most part, will stay with the same stewards. And our own sensibility of community, we hope, will continue to grow, as we really need to have the strength of relationship inform our work in the world as a beloved community. So Kozan.
Thank you, Roshi. It's so wonderful to see everyone, and that so many people have your videos on. I mean, that I recognize everyone, that we've come to get to know each other over this year, that I recognize you not only from coming together in SEBT, but from practice periods and ease and joy and all the ways we've found each other in the cloud to practice together. I mean, really, maybe you're feeling the same way, but it's kind of amazing that there's almost 200 of us together in this way, practicing through the course of a year. And, you know, I remember the walk that Roshi and I took at Prajna, kind of coming up with this crazy idea. And Roshi, just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart and on behalf of everyone, because it's your passion and kind of willingness to just jump in that made this all happen, to bring everyone together, you know, on the wings of an idea. And all these beautiful teachers, all of our collegial stewards, putting it out and saying, 300 people all together, that'll be beautiful. And I was like, 300 people, that's a lot. And you said, not at all. We'll support one another. So thank you for leading us in that way and gathering us as you do. So as Roshi mentioned, you know, this is a time for bearing witness to each other's, you know, the fruits of this year and what we're bringing with us as we step into the future together, as we step into our lives going forward. And so we want to take just a moment to reflect on what you want to bring with you, the inspiration from this year, the fruits of the depth of practice you stepped into this year that we've all stepped into, and our commitment to service, how that's evolved and taken shape. And so if there's one vow, one kind of North Star vow that you'd like to guide your way as we step across this threshold, of course, continuing SEBT in a new format and a new structure, but in some way, you know, stepping across the threshold into really taking on how we do this in our life day in, day out. And so if there's a vow that guides you in that, what leads you to be of service, to be a bodhisattva in the world, to root yourself day in and day out in this practice of not knowing and bearing witness and compassionate action, we'd love to share those. So I'm going to ask if you have such a vow, or if one comes to you in reflection, to share it in the chat and to let us inspire one another in that way and be witnessed by one another in that way. And we'll, take a minute to just reflect, not on every teacher that has come to join us, not on every moment. It has been so rich, but on how it arises for you in this moment as you go forth. What comes to the surface? And I'll just
Roberta
read a few
says,
of them.
yeah,
Go ahead, Roshi.
Roberta says service to community. And Erica has two vows. I want to hear both. Follow through. I vow to follow through, says Janet. And Tete says compassion. And Jack, you got it right out of the jewel mirror of Samadhi. Complications are auspicious. Do not resist them. And what I said during practice period was that bodhisattvas do not seek easy situations. Bodhisattvas do not seek easy situations. So thank you, Jack. Complications are auspicious. Do not resist them. Kozan.
Yeah. So Jennifer Lacoste says, I vow to face this world with love. Carrie says, to be present to what unfolds. Miranda says, to stay on the listening tour I've been on this year, to continue listening. Zoe Kors simply says, compassionate action. And Neil Rosen, not knowing, but not knowing together. Fred says, to embody the dharma, to stay engaged. Charlie says, not to cultivate a mind of poverty in myself or in others, one of our 16 precepts. Lorraine says, show up, be fully present. Roshi, are there others standing out to you?
Many, oh gosh. To continue turning toward suffering and difficulty with an open heart, not knowing, bearing witness, and acting with compassion. And Christine, I love what you said, radical acceptance. This is it, radical acceptance. Steve, I know that you've just turned your whole world toward the earth. I vow to serve our Mother Earth and her beings tirelessly and with joy. Really important. Kozan.
Nancy says, the miracle of just reaching out. Kelly says, to be fearless. Kate, compassionate presence. And Hillary says, I vow to pursue compassionate action about essential social issues. Monica says, not to turn away from suffering. And Jill, of course, says, do not find fault with the present moment.
Yes.
What's amazing is I think we have almost 150 people who've shared vows. I mean, all of you have chimed in. All of you have found a vow to guide you. Tim Harrison says, turning suffering into the path rather than turning away from it. So I really encourage everyone to join us in reading these. It's quite inspiring.
Melissa, thank you. I vow to practice grace, a protocol, especially in hospice encounters and toward accelerating racial equity. Thank you. Kozan.
Karen says, practice invisibly, work intimately.
Be a fool with no voice.
Heidi Evans says, exchanging other for self, not two, not one.
Beautiful. And I so appreciate Nahaima, who's down here with us. Do not squander. Do not squander.
Mm. Kelly Beck says, I will not look away. I vow to stay here, open eyes and open heart. Rich says, I vow to not dwell in discouragement. There is no room in the Bodhisattva vows for that. And Allison says, never be afraid to lean into the suffering and joys of the world, which may be a wonderful way of kind of capturing the sense of what we've been sharing with each other, leaning into the suffering and the joys of the world.
And Mark says, look the monster that is chasing me or chasing us in the eye. Right on, Mark.
Michelle, this is so sweet. Sweep without busyness, rest in love. There is always one who is not busy. So we will keep the record of all these, and there'll be more that we'll put in the chat. So a couple people have asked, and we'll send them around in our closing email for this first year. So don't think you need to capture these. Although I should say the document they go around in is very crude, so you'll have to, it's just a text document. Roshi, shall we step into the projects?
Well, I think I want to just say a few more things about our vows.
Yeah.
There's a really wonderful book called Living by Vow, and we use that text by Okamura Roshi, but also the image of what is it to live with the attitude of a bodhisattva. What is it to make these commitments that really relate to our character, to who we really are? Not the neurotic self, the self that feels constrained, but it's like when we use the phrase going forth, it means that we're going forth with the gravity and lightness, if you will, the wings of these vows, both grounding us and allowing us into space. So this is why we felt it was so important to actually, of the many kinds of vows that we have explored in the process of our year together, and knowing how essential the three tenets has been for many of us who work in complex conditions, that this North Star for you, that it really be instantiated, that it be in your marrow, that it be your best friend, if you will, as you go forth into a world that is really imperiled. And the ballast and lightness of this vow that you have shared is something that is literally life-saving. So I don't want us to feel like, it's not like, the Buddhist precepts or the 10 Commandments, the sort of religious rules. In a way, this is a personal vow that you're making, a personal promise. It's your own character that is speaking to what is like this one piece in your heart, in your life, this one aspiration that you will always turn to. It could have been what your mother said when you were a kid. My mother was a volunteer up until literally the day she died, helping people in various situations. And it is at that level, what she communicated to me was how essential it is to serve those who are suffering. And she lived that in her life. So it's like looking into your history and pulling those threads forward, as this community is going through its transition at this time. So I just, if you have any more vows that you want to put in here, I love that, Margie. Never quell a generous impulse. Jean, I vow to be a good ancestor, but don't hurry. I'd like you to be a bodhisattva before you're an ancestor. Any more vows that you feel to put into the chat stream, because it is here in a way, this is a record that we want to hold. Thank you, Lucia. I vow to practice grandmother's heart. This is a record that we want to hold in this Maha community that we have grown so much in and through.
Beautiful,
Wonderful.
Mark. Yeah, I vow to be flexible, not rigid. And Chris, bring heartbreak along with me on the path.
Wonderful.
Wow.
I vow to be a loving force in the great turning. Beautiful.
And Judith, I vow to practice tenderness, even with myself.
Bettina, thank you. And you can continue to add your vows for a few more minutes, because we're going to ask another question. But before we move off the vow practice and the vow ballast, if you will, I want to ask, and I'm going to put you all on a gallery view from there. I want to ask a few of you a question, if I might. And that is, what edge did you encounter? What edge? What sense of wow, uh-oh, did you encounter in the course of this training? And I'm going to call you all so we can, hear from a few of you we haven't heard from before, or I haven't. And so maybe Tim Harrison. Tim, we can pin you. Spotlight for everybody. Hi, Tim.
Oh, Roshi. Did I just freeze? Am I supposed to answer this question?
Yeah, I would love to hear about, because I know that you teach compassion at Emory. So I hate to put you on the spot, but it's my pleasure. Yeah. What edge did you encounter, Tim?
Well, I'd say the freshest edge for me in the last couple of months, it really came to a point when Bell Hooks passed that I got interested in her writing and read an incredible book called The Will to Change, Men, Masculinity, and Love. And it's been quite dramatic to confront what she called patriarchy, not just in the world, but in myself as a leader. So that's my edge. That's the edge.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Tim, thank you. That's a very, to me, that's a very raw edge at this time. Thank you so much. So I'm opening up gallery again. And I'd like to invite, let's see, Ellen Agler. Hi, Ellen. I would so appreciate if you would share very succinctly the edge that came up for you this year, in part through the training.
Thank you. So many. A lot of my project was leaning into the dynamics of the aid industry globally. And I'm sort of inspired by Tim's comment about patriarchy, whether it's patriarchy or white supremacy or white saviorism that has been a legacy for so long. And I didn't think I was participating in it, but sort of unveiling ways of doing things and just bearing witness and deeply listening to colleagues that I work with in Africa, I think has been humbling and transformative and hard, because it certainly cracks open questions of my own. What have I been doing all these years, and what's the future of this sector? I think the not knowing, just taking a lot of time in the not knowing space and bearing witness space, and how that you just need to stay there before taking action. And as someone who is such an activist and sort of wanting to be on the front line and jump to go, and there's so much to do in this world that we need to change now, I think that the slowing down, go slow to go fast, has really been an edge for me. And I think will change the way I live and lead going forward.
Thank you so much. And also for your amazing project. David Bodney. David, I'd love to invite you, and let's see, can someone unmute you?
Am I unmuted?
You are unmuted. Now let me pin you. No, can you pin David, Noah?
If he just starts talking, it should be fine.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Roshi, and thanks everyone for your comments. They all ring true to me. I guess the edge for me has been one of appreciating when to speak and when to remain silent. I've been focusing on right speech and what that might mean in a political climate of all speech all the time, where our civic dialogue has become so toxic, and where that civic dialogue finds its way into our homes, into our kitchens, into our lives, and into our hearts. So the edge state for me has been one, again, of not knowing and bearing witness, listening, practicing noble silence, and then maybe, just maybe, knowing when to speak out and what to say.
Thank you, David. So much. Yeah. Dear Dorothea, may I call on you?
I was trying to hide myself, but I guess you can't do that on Zoom, especially when you have the video on. Are we doing Edge?
Edge,
Roshi?
what has,
Okay.
yeah, what's been the edge for you?
Been working a lot with integrity and equanimity.
Mm.
In terms of equanimity, throughout the year, I found myself thinking, now, this, or that, or this, maybe that. And at one point, I think it was after the spring practice period, I'm not sure when it was, sometime in the summer, I finally realized that I need to just start where I'm at, wherever it is. And I think that will be my vow as well, to forever start where I'm at. And that I cannot keep searching for the best way, and that I cannot wait for wisdom to come. And that last year I found that what I was learning in our training program, and while doing all the activism that I was involved in, they were all kind of grading and refining each other. So the more I did my activist work, the more I understood what we were learning in our Zoom meetings. So they were kind of refining each other, and that was so beautiful. So start where I'm at and keep working that equanimity and integrity.
Beautiful.
And thank you so much for putting this together. I cannot imagine how much work went into it. Thank you.
Well, I'm happy also that you and Kozan are going to be teaching together this summer. So I appreciate deeply you two committing to stepping forward in that way as well. And in addition to all the ways that you do, it's wonderful. Monica, dear Monica, I had such a beautiful time with you in practice period. But what was your edge in this year in our training?
Thank you, Roshi. So good to see you. So good to see everyone. My edge was really to stop hiding from myself. And I also realized it's also a vow. So many ways in, which I believed the things that I was told about myself, or the ways in which I was showing up as a socially engaged Buddhist or as an activist and serving the world, and just unpacking, like filtering all of that noise that was conditioned, was, products of oppression, and also just my own unwillingness and resistance to be with what is. And I think the most difficult work was really just to be to be with, oh, like, that's what I've been not wanting to see.
Oh,
And I think that's such important work, to be able to, I think it's courageous work, just to be able to be with that, but also come with that to others.
yeah. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Monica. So, we hadn't planned to ask this question, but I, just in reading your vows, I wanted to just bring up this issue, as we go forth out of the structure of this training and into a new structure of community for many of us. It is essential that we recognize the edges that we can grow from, or that we can fall over, if you know what I'm saying. And so part of the training, and really the focus of the practice, is this deep process of familiarization with your own difficulties, your own vulnerabilities, and to know that they are shared by others. Just like David, who's a lawyer, suddenly it's not just right speech, it's also not knowing and silence. So that's pretty hard for a lawyer. Or Monica, speaking about not only racism, but, also patriarchy and the oppressive elements in our psyche and society, and recognizing how to work with those skillfully. So thank you. So Kozan, do you mind if I ask for our community now to put in the chat stream any edge that you've encountered, that you're still, it's still part of your own character formation, what's happening right now, what you're learning from. Is that okay, Kozan?
Not okay at all. No, I have an edge around it. It's perfect timing. Perfect. Sounds great.
So if you really, just as we're collecting your vows, the edge of judgment, says Maureen, self-judgment, righteous anger, God, tell me about it, self-doubt, and grief. Jenny, Jenny is head of palliative care, University of Texas, San Antonio. The edge of grief that many of us, in fact, are on. Maureen, overwhelm.
Deborah, accepting going over the edge, knowing that we'll fall off and pick ourselves back up again and again. And Lorraine, the intimacy of impermanence, how close we get to it. And Jeff, the edge of feeling grief more deeply, opening ourselves up fully to the world, allowing even grief in fully.
Kelly, just in 2 words, grief and fear. Grief and fear.
Nancy says humility, and reminds us that Wendy Johnson said, there is no room for self-doubt. Humility carried too far keeps me from simplicity of reaching out. Zoe says, the edge of being not enough, or feeling not enough. Heidi Evans says, the edge of years of being part of the problem, trying to catch up, to make up. And Nira says grief, acceptance, and self-doubt.
We'll take another minute for you recording your edge again so we can collect them. Feeling deserving of joy and rest. Oh, Rich, courage to give up grand delusions of change and embracing every action makes a difference. Beautiful. Jerry, I love that. Not feeling Buddhist enough. Okay, it's okay. I have COVID hair. I still feel less respected because I have hair. I'll work it through.
Kelly says my edge was Sangha, not feeling a sense of belonging, which can be such an edge during this pandemic, to find our place, to reach beyond what separates us. And Tom says my edge was not letting go of my ego, was not letting my ego get in the way of being present to my mom. Not letting my ego get in the way to being present to my mom.
Thank you for these. I think this reflects many of these edges are edges that I am still on. Thank you. Hopelessness, says Bettina. Fear of judgment. Laura being white saviors. Yeah. It's an edge.
Cindy says the edge of simply sitting with the rush of feelings. And Laura says the edge of overwhelm, doubt, the edge of not knowing. Beth says my edge is the same as my vow, to continue to use my voice and stay engaged.
Beautiful. So thank you. We will collect these edges into a landscape that many of us are familiar with. So thank you. So what Kozan and I would like us to do now is for you to put into the chat stream the name of your project. And we want to do this because not all of you are accessing the collections as we have. They're just incredible what has gone on. So you can have some sense of how big a landscape was covered by our community. So if you would just put the name of your project in, that would be wonderful.
And if you have any subtitles to the project, don't hesitate to add them.
Thank you. I'm like, whoops.
I love Michelle, the non-project project. Curious with that.
Kozan, why don't you share some of these titles, okay?
Just to share a few of them, yeah. So Cheryl says your project is the compassion in the classroom. Pam's is grandmother's heart and grace. Carrie, keep home alive. Diana's is coming full circle back to the Dharma. Katie is social justice sewing. Nira says, myself, I was my project. Jennifer Lacoste is pandemic response on the front line. I know you feel, Jennifer. Nancy's was self-sustaining support groups for young physicians, which I know by the end, many of them are now self-sustaining, which has been quite a thing, Nancy. Zoe's has been care and comfort in hospice house. Laura's endometriosis, doulaship, designing. And Tiffany's is creating healing gardens. Virginia Smalls is being, blocking, and becoming on Bradford Beach. Wonderful framework. Benita's has been bearing witness, Black birth experience. And Tim's has been free where you are, prison mindfulness community. Laura Beans has been mindfulness and creative writing curriculum, creating an incredible curriculum, a book really. Heather Thornton's easing activist burnout, so necessary and pervasive. Chris is the Dharma of trees, which has a website on that's been shared and you can look at. David Madison's is compassionate, conscious, early stage venture investing, the whole gambit. Henry Warren's is serving the elderly, sick, and dying in their homes. And Ellen's is people, power, and proximity, serving mindfully the immigrant paradigm shift in global health and international humanitarian aid. So from very local to very global. Roshi, any you want to share?
No, I'm just like in awe. I mean, whether it's this incredible life guides that Mark has developed to benefit others, the garden projects, the farming projects, also working in the prison system, issues around race and racial justice, so important for us to address. So, wow, it's just amazing. The span of endeavors is just really inspiring. So, what we'd like to do for just a moment is to return to the first few sessions of the training. Beginning really with what Joanna Macy shared with us, that we could easily have a planet or our species on hospice at this time. But it's to understand this is a sacred time that we're in, that we don't turn away from suffering, that we bring, excuse me, ourselves into that truth of suffering as it is. It's just like the work that I myself have done with dying people. Just because a person is dying, it doesn't mean that we turn away from them. In fact, this sacred time is a time when we really need to offer our attention, our capacity to respond, and our responsiveness to a world that is so vulnerable right now, and to a people and to species. So Joanna laid this out. I laid out a bit of the history of engaged Buddhism, which really started from the time of the Buddha, who flattened out the caste system, who brought women, thanks to Ananda, into the Sangha, who ordained untouchables, who ordained the serial killer Angulimala, who tried to cultivate a kind of community of practice, but also of service that has inspired us now for, we look at the history of Buddhism, and there are many examples of social and environmental engagement, and that our contemplative practice is not separate from social action. And then what Tova brought in for us, and this matched beautifully what our good friend Eve Marco shared. Tova said, our work is about listening really deeply, very much what you have discovered in terms of wise speech, David. Wise speech also is silence, and that capacity for presence that allows us to listen in this radical way with discernment, but without judgment. And this is essential for our practice. And so we come to Bernie Glassman's 3 tenets. What is it to be completely open to things as they are? To be interested in the differences, and to move out of moral outrage into a quality of discernment, which, using the work of John Paul Lederach, our capacity to rehumanize those who are radically different and have really values that we consider to be, and probably are, very harmful. How do we rehumanize? Not only within ourselves, but rehumanize in our interactions with others, the so-called other. And I think this is something I learned working in the prison system in a really hostile environment. It was that feeling that this is a human being across from me. Yes, a murderer, a rapist, but this is a human being as well. And I'm glad this person's not on the street, but it is still a human, very much in what Thich Nhat Hanh called wounded Buddha. This is a wounded Buddha. It's a very radical kind of view. So what is it to open ourselves and to look really deeply without moral outrage or the trauma of moral injury disabling us? And what is it to bear witness, to really connect with, to be in this sphere of interbeing, of realized interbeing? Excuse me. To see that we're not separate from the people who are creating great suffering for others. And I was reminded here of a time at Omega Institute where Thich Nhat Hanh came shortly after Rodney King was horribly beaten by police in the LAPD. And Thich Nhat Hanh said, "I did not want to come to your country, but I realized I had to come." And just as he wrote in his poem, "Please Call Me by My True Names," he said, "I am Rodney King," Thich Nhat Hanh said, "but I'm also the police beating Rodney King." We we share at a deep systems level the karma of each other. So it is not to separate from that truth, but it is to bear witness to it, not bypassing, not being a bystander, but being at one with it, recognizing we are not separate from the very suffering that we are protesting. And out of not knowing and bearing witness, then compassionate action, which is what these projects so powerfully represent. Whether it's your own spiritual formation, because the wounds have created such a weight for you, and you are in that process of working that edge, or whether like Marina taking on the fishing industry, or David, our Constitution, David Bodney. It's so important that we realize the deep benefits of compassion by engaging directly in the truth of suffering in our world and finding the scale of action that is appropriate for us. That's very critical. So compassionate action, loving action is the third tenet. Not knowing, bearing witness, and loving action. Kozan.
Thank you, Roshi. And that has been such a deep through line for our year. I know for me and for so many of us, to return to the three tenets. So before we move on, I wanted, in this way, you've been recalling what we've been through. And I've just been looking over some quotes from the year. And I just wanted to share some of the quotes that stood out. And so many of these I need to attribute to Nancy Hardaway and Nancy's final project, which was this beautiful paneled, calligraphized kind of reflection of the year. Willow, my dog, is really having quite a nap. Maybe you can hear her in the background. But so thank you, Nancy, for many of these. And just to recall some of the words of wisdom we've shared this past year and heard. And the first is, of course, from Joanna Macy, who in that first talk recalled, being turned inside out like a popcorn, and the kind of experience of not knowing, this first experience of not knowing that made it feel like her body was the whole world. And she said she came out of that and, quote, "The self was neither to be vaunted nor overcome, neither to be punished nor improved. It needed only to be seen through like a bubble that would eventually pop." And she said, when I kind of came back from that experience, I heard a clear voice saying, now we can finally be released into action. The next is from Tova Green, who says, who asks us, how are you influencing the conversation by the way you listen? How are you influencing the conversation by the way you listen? And then Eve Marco, speaking directly to the three tenets, said, it takes quite a lot of relinquishing to accept the fittingness of non-fitting. Talked about the discomfort of things always kind of not fitting, and then that being fitting in itself. She said, if you can do that, you're able to live with a lot of differences. And then later in the year, Lamarad told us, we have to step into the mud with awareness. We have to step in. He said, I am in it, but I am not of the mud. I am not the mud. Later, John Paul Lederach joined us, and he said, don't wait for the miracle to come to you. Reach out to what you can touch right now. Don't wait for the miracle to come to you. Reach out to what you can touch, where you are right now. And Wendy Johnson, who shared with us this year, and I know is on with us, shared earlier in the year, long before Thich Nhat Hanh passed, a quote from Thai. And the quote was, to suffer is not enough. We must also be in touch with the wonder of life. To suffer is not enough. We must also be in touch with the wonder of life. And it's been a real kind of rare jewel to have Wendy recalling Thai's teachings this past month during practice period. And if you haven't listened to any of those, they're on our podcast, and they've been wonderful talks. And then Larry Ward shared with us, know the communities within yourself and whose voice you want to listen to. Whose voice do you want to listen to, he asked us. And Rhonda McGee asked, how are you complicit in injustice? How are you complicit in injustice? And then the final two, one from Frank Ostaseski, I believe is also with us and has been with us through the year. He said, get out into nature and stay there until you know you belong. Get out into nature and stay there until you know you belong. And he encouraged us, as has Roshi through this year, to take care of ourselves inside and out, that we may tend to others, be with the world fully. And then finally, from the Grace training, from Roshi, compassion is about serving, not fixing, managing ourselves so that we can make a difference. Compassion is about serving, not fixing, managing ourselves so that we can make a difference. So much richness this year, so much to buoy us and guide us. Thank you again, Nancy, for collecting so many of those. And I just wanted to recall before we ended this year in such a way. Thank you.
Thank you, Kozan. So we would like to come into an enso and very succinctly, I'm going to call on a few of you to say a few words about what it means to you to go forth, And I'm going to switch back to gallery, if that's okay. And Bibiana.
Hi, thank you. Last year was, I don't know why I don't see my image.
We can see you well.
Okay, thanks.
Don't worry.
Thanks. Last year was a year of healing for me. I had a lot of things to look into. And now I am ready to go out. So for me, it has been a preparation to find my own personal way to do this work. So it's been like a personal transformation, very, very deep. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bibiana. Yeah, wonderful. May you go forth with wings, but also good gravity. So, Robert Spivey. Hi, Robert. Going to unmute you, I hope there.
Hi, Roshi, thank you. Yes, as I was reflecting on the edge, it's really to just know that I can go forth without feeling like I had to do so much to save, to be so much like in the grip of this anxious, impelling thing, but just to trust that there's all this community around me, just as there's all this community here, this wonderful community. And so that I could be buoyed by that, and I could find that right just outside my door. And just that this is a direction that I can really center and find my integration of practice and work in the world now. So that's what I'm excited about.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your acknowledgement of the community and both your personal and then our Maha. Marina Colby, going forth, you know, someone who works in our government, going forth, Marina.
Thank you. And my project is actually around socially and environmentally conscious policymaking. So I feel very inspired going forth, resourced, supported, and ready to do what a lot of people are fearful in government is I'm ready to cross lanes and to to really deeply listen and build the relationships that we all want to build to really design and implement smart policy to protect people on the planet. And I'm so grateful for the support of this community and for you, Roshi, Joan.
Oh, Marina, you really touched my heart with what you do in the world. It's amazing. Okay, Hillary, we will see you out there. I'm going to ask just a few more of us. Richard Warner.
Thanks, Roshi, and thank you again, everybody. What a wonderful year! You really feel carried forward. I just feel carried forward by all these amazing people. So, so on sort of the Anyway, for me, do your best. I think do your best, and do it with heart. I think that's me. And then don't beat myself up if I don't quite get there. So I think that sort of thing. And just each moment, each conversation is a new opportunity to do that. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much. Jackie, Ms. Rolex. Sorry. Okay, I'm pinning you. I'm spotlighting you for everybody.
Oh,
what about going forth? What do you say?
Oh, thank you so much, Roshi. Going forth, I'm just going to focus on some of the things that I wrote about. My chaplaincy practice, my career in watchmaking, and seeing the connections between time and death and life. And it's amazing that it took being a watchmaker to see those connections, building machines that measure time, and watching people without a lot of time. And just something that I kind of picked up on recently, as a watchmaker, I am trained to fix. I am trained to fix what I see. But as a chaplain, we are trained to see and not fix. And switching back and forth between those two heads is one of the reasons that I sit. So Shikantaza will continue to be my practice so that I can make those switches and to show up authentically.
Beautiful. So one of the beautiful things that we have learned in the course of this year and that you have pointed to is this capacity to phase shift, to be nimble between states and situations. And so I love you pointing that out. And also that in a certain context, fixing is appropriate, but not if you're a chaplain.
There is something that watchmakers sometimes say, which is not every watch can or even should be fixed. I apply that to humans. We're here to support each other, and we're not here to fix each other, but to support people in how they they choose to approach what's going on with them.
Well, thank you so much. I think this is the perfect statement to transition out of our ENSO into the final moments. And I hope we meet in person one day. And I do have an old Rolex, which I want to talk to you about one day.
Okay.
Sorry, someone gave it to me. But anyway, goes on.
Thank you, Roshi. And thank you for those shares, everyone who stepped in. Everyone's been so willing to step right in. It's kind of wonderful. You know, I know we're coming to a close, and what we haven't mentioned is how much richness there's been in the groups we've all been in our collegial steward groups. And we just had a gathering of the collegial stewards the other day, kind of recounting the year and recalling our final meetings in our smaller groups. And each one of us was just blown away by the richness of that conversation, the depth of the support for one another. I kind of didn't know what we'd all make of it at first. And I've had an edge of kind of patience. Okay, what is this going to look like? How are we going to show up together? And I've been held in that edge by my two collegial steward groups who, if anything, have been the stewards themselves rather than me doing much. And it's been inspiring beyond what I could have imagined for this year together. And so I really want to thank all of our, you probably don't even know who all the stewards are. So I really want to thank everyone who stepped in, on 24-hour notice to hold these learning and practice communities, the smaller communities with us. And so that's been Sensei Al, who I know is on with us. Thank you, Sensei Al. And Alcio, who we heard from not long ago in a Wednesday evening talk. What an amazing practitioner down in Brazil. And Brooke Bars and Brisha Wade, Frank Ostaseski, Sensei Arena, who I think may be one of the few not on with us because she's in Europe and it's 3 a.m. there right now. Jill De La Hunt was with us, Liz Farmer, Noah Rowan, of course, who during the course of this year, I think, went from Rossiter to Rowan. It's been a big year.
And a baby.
I'm a dad. And Sensei Shinzan and Stephanie Kaza, Wendy Johnson, and Wendy Lau.
And me.
And you.
And you.
So it's been incredible to work with all of them, and to know that that's been the team of practitioners and friends that has been holding the whole with us, and with whom we could not have done this. So thank you all so much for jumping all the way in and for practicing together in this way.
And then I want to thank all the teachers. I see Mark Donatelli and Frank are both on, and I don't know, Stephanie, what other teachers are on, but it's just so, I'm so grateful for you all stepping into the mandala. And then to let you know about year 2, on the 20th of February, I've asked John Paul to actually do a micro training session on conflict transformation. I just feel like the world needs us to have this skill now. And then on the 15th of May, Joanna Macy and Stephanie Kaza will do a micro training on Joanna's amazing work. And then on August 21st, Corrine Luck and Kozan will be doing a session on community process, on beloved community. So it's, our foci our both good trouble and beloved community. And then finally, the last session, which will happen on December 11th, will be Cristiana Figueres, who is the architect of the Paris Climate Accord, and I will be doing a special session on how our attitude and language change structure, and how important it is, and this is back to David Bodney, that we engage in wise speech and we be able to actually change the frames of reference in our speech practice toward a deeper appreciation, both of differences and also the courage to hold up the mirror strongly. And all of our collegial stewards will stay with us for this coming year, except for Noah, because we asked Noah to step back between being the executive director at Upaya and a new dad. He is full out and full on. So we will be taking Noah's group and absorbing it into, probably a little bit my group, a little bit around Stephanie's group, and so on. And as I said, say what goes on?
I think that was Noah just saying thank you, acknowledging he has had quite a bit on his plate.
He has a little bit on it, but you people are young. And then just again, this is a year of where there's done totally on a Dharma basis, and your support is deeply appreciated, so that we can give to the collegial stewards and also our faculty, and to understand also that the collegial stewards will work out with each of their groups the way that they want to meet in the coming years. So it's a more co-created schedule. So I'm going to invite Kozan to complete with a recitation of the 4 vows, and then I will say the night chant, and we will conclude this radical, crazy training. And just so you know, you, my dear friends, forever, however long that is, will have access to the resource page for this training. So it's not open to the public. We're not turning it into a product, just FYI. It is a treasure house for you all, truly. And I ask you to access it, study, learn from it, return to it, and let yourself be lifted up by it. So Kozan.
So as Roshi said, we'll close with the 4 vows, and if you know them, you can speak them along with me. Creations are numberless. I vow to freedom. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to transform them. Reality is boundless. I vow to perceive it. The awakened way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it. Let me respectfully remind you, life and death are of supreme importance. Time passes swiftly and opportunity is lost. Let us awaken. Awaken. Do not squander your life. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everyone.
So much.
So wonderful to spend this year with you all.
Thank
see you
all.
out there, and see you in the coming year.
I put the link in. I hope you can join us. And I love you all.
And we love you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
you. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, wonderful.
Nancy.
Thank you.
Bye, Nancy.
Enjoy your vacation. Thank you, everybody.
You're a customer.
Bye.
Thank you, Roshi.
Thank you, Kigaku.
Wonderful
Thank you,
year.
Roshi.
Hey, guys.
Wendy.
Thank you, Kigaku. Thank you,
Thank you,
Kozan.
Sangha.
Thank
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Obrigado.
Thank you,
Tchau.
Bye.
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 Chris.
Bye-bye.
I hear you, Gina.